Hi, and welcome to Metagame. I'm Christa Lee.
And I'm Sophia Park, and we also have a guest today.
Hi, I'm Alex Zandra.
Alex Zandra van Chestain?
Van Chestain.
Chestain.
I'm slowly shifting into just calling myself Alexandra and leaving it there.
Oh, okay. So a little bit about us. Metagame is intended to be a media criticism podcast, sort of a critique of game and interactive journalism as it is. Chris and I both come from interdisciplinary backgrounds. I have a degree in film, and Krista comes from music and works as a composer, whereas I work in narrative design. And we were looking to discuss a little bit about what game journalists are talking about and investigate how and why we talk about interactive media the way we do. And so today, I want to ask the table, is game journalism entertainment? Are game journalists entertainers, or are they critics?
Yeah, this is interesting to me also because I do a little bit of everything. Like I did game dev stuff, I still do. I do writing. I also do reviews kind of as on Twitch and analysis. So I don't know if I dip into that journalism thing, but I'm certainly an entertainer. That's my goal, but
But are you a critic first or an entertainer first?
I'm an entertainer first.
Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, yeah.
So when we think about critics, what makes game journalists and game critics or interactive critics different from, say, like the people at Pitchfork or Roger Ebert, especially when he was doing the show with Gene Siskel? What was the name of it, Krista?
It was called At the Movies.
At the Movies.
I watched that a lot.
But is Death Metal Jesus a critic?
What?
Never mind.
Is that a critic?
He's a YouTube guy.
Really?
I am picturing, however, Gene Siskel doing a review of the latest Back to the Future, and then tune in tomorrow when I'm going to be showing off some home movies of me biking. It's that's not exactly how I picture movie critics, but it is entirely how I picture a lot of video game critics.
So, yeah, I mean, when you look at the Movies, it essentially is like the GameSpot video reviews, where we show a clip and we give an evaluation of the formal elements, and we just say, I liked it, or I didn't. And based upon that sort of quantification, give an analysis of the work to an audience. Whereas there isn't I guess in film, you could think about Red Letter Media as doing sketches that integrate analysis and coverage. But beyond that, when you think of other game journalist outlets, or think of say Polygon or Giant Bomb, I think the only exclusion I can think of is GameSpot. The format is a lot more about entertainment first, and so my question from there was does the entertainment come before the analysis, or how do they actually manage the balance?
Yeah, it's been interesting, and I think it is very site dependent. I'm trying to find a good word, but yeah, because there's it's been interesting seeing the GameSpot days, and then the Giant Bomb schism, and then Giant Bomb starting very review focused, and then very slowly shifting and eventually just embracing, no, we are a video site, and sometimes we review things.
You go where the money's at, right?
Yeah, I guess that's the part of they have to keep the lights on, and also they find stuff they like to do, and this actually works out real well. But yeah, I don't know if video game review, even in the GameSpot days, there was silly stuff, very entertainment focused things. I like button mashing, for example. But
what was button mashing?
Button mashing was their game show where they brought in contestants to play do game challenges. It was silly and entertaining. So
they would it'd be like the NES sort of the remixes where there's this little selection or something, and they would play through it really well or something.
Yeah, there was a bit of that. Sometimes it would also okay, now we're going to show you a supercut of 10 games, each one for like half a second, and then watch it. Okay, name all of the games, and whoever named as many would eventually go on to like fight one of the reviewers in a competitive game. It was silly and fun, and like I remember because like the Rich Gallup who hosted it got to meet Bob Barker, or not Bob Barker, Alex Trebek, and said like, "Hi, do you have any advice for like budding game show hosts?" And Alex said, "Don't do it. There's no market. Get out."
Yeah, I like it when Bob Barker said spay and neuter your pets.
Said it so much, but yeah, it's is there
Is there...
Okay, because games are interactive. Like, and movies and like and other forms of entertainment aren't. So there's always that thing about, well, you can't fail to watch a movie. You can't like, oh, I just couldn't understand what was going on between the supporting characters in the second act, so the movie turned off.
It's passive.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about Cuphead.
What?
Never mind. Something that occurs to me, two things that occur to me. One, it feels more and more like the show X-Play sort of has retroactively become the template for what a game site's spread of coverage is. You have sort of a cursory, like, audience, like, consumer-focused estimation of, like, the quality of a thing, but then interspersed with that, you have more entertainment style vignettes or sketches. You know, Polygon has really, in the last few months, leaned into those. I think least of all of the sites, least to their the detriment of their writing. I think their writing is still solid, and they've managed to like split those two halves pretty well. The other thing that occurs to me is that, despite personally preferring a little bit more of a critical, I would much rather read, articles on a game and, like, thoughts on it and stuff than I would to watch a funny video, even though I like funny videos. I'm also reminded of the Japanese game show entertainment show, Game Center CX, which is, for those who don't know, it basically, there's a Japanese comedian, Shinya Arino, and he plays an old, usually Famicom or Super Famicom. He's done some 3DO games, just kind of older games. He just plays them and, is entertaining while playing them, but he plays through them. And the show goes to great lengths to show every single aspect of what a game can do, even like hidden secret things that like you might not normally access. Like, the show actually goes out of its way to have Arino do those things so that the audience has like a full picture of this game as a text, as an object, like as its own thing. And that kind of attention to both simultaneously entertaining while also informing about a work of art isn't something that I see as much in on these sites. Giant Bomb's definitely a website where they play a game and you get a good idea of usually like the first 20% of that game around there, and you do get these are intelligent critical minds who are playing these games and they're reacting to them, but there certainly is a focus more on entertainment there than there is on any kind of like real thorough analysis or engagement with what the work is doing.
Well, my question is obviously how much writing in interactive media do you actually read versus how many videos do you watch?
Right, so it is definitely skewed towards videos, which begs the question: is that the preferred avenue? I as somebody who has her hands in a lot of different pots artistically, I don't necessarily engage with games media as much as I do other forms of media. But when I do engage with games media, it is typically that more entertaining, like, when Carboys was the thing, I would watch that, or, Polygon's videos. And that definitely has superseded a lot of my interest in a lot of that writing. And I'm not sure if that's a net positive or not, but...
Well, yeah, because the question after all of this is whether or not there's a duty to be a critic or a duty to be an entertainer, and what format most benefits the medium as a whole.
because if we're looking for like what benefits, I will usually get, well, something I think is like the benefit of having critics who are also entertainers, I find, is that kind of lets you get to know them. And I'll usually, like, it's something I've heard like a lot of other people say also. It's the fact that, my tastes in this kind of, like, in this type of game tends to like match a lot of that critic's tastes. So, or if I get to know someone better through entertainment videos, then I'll get to know their tastes a little bit better. So I'll be like, they'll become like a little bit more, how can I say it, like a faithful, or just like a closer like barometer to my own taste, to say like, oh, if this person doesn't like this game, I'm fairly certain I wouldn't. And like, even like the quick look videos from Giant Bomb, where they basically just like play a game for like 45 minutes, is usually like a real good indicator of, are they having fun or not? And also, that kind of also affects how I'm seeing it, because there's a difference between seeing a game played and playing it yourself. There's some games that are like incredibly, like there's a huge gulf between the two experiences. And sometimes like having someone who is like experiencing live the thing, and who you know on some superficial level, can like give, I think, like maybe of like almost as much information as an actual review. Of course, the review will go like deeper into stuff, but it's if the goal of a game review and criticism is like, well, how will I like it as a consumer, then I think the two are close. But then again, I think criticism usually goes beyond that, doesn't it?
Well, I think with Giant Bomb, what you're looking at is that these are qualified people. Like, that's what drew me to the site, was that I wasn't watching a teenager in a bedroom. I was watching like seasoned, like 30-year-on, like veterans of the industry, playing these things in a more loose format. And I think that they intended to be a loose format, and so it sort of just became the same form of entertainment we're seeing on Twitch or on YouTube.
Yeah, definitely. When I was getting into this space, Idle Thumbs was that for me. And it's kind of a similar thing, where they're industry professionals who've been making games for a good number of years. And there's a sense of trust, not trustworthiness is maybe a little too weighted of a term, but there's definitely a sense of like, okay, these people know where they're taking me, and I'm okay with, just letting them do that, as opposed to, like professional Jared or something. I'm not sure so much what this person's, methods or interests really are, because I don't really have a clear understanding of them outside of their material.
Or the completionist, the enthusiast press, what you'd find from, say, like Normal Boots, or what are some other networks on YouTube?
That's the one that comes to mind for me.
Yeah, I don't watch a lot of like YouTubers. I mostly watch, which is weird, because like I stream on Twitch and I make videos for YouTube, so I don't know where I stand on this, but I usually watch more live stuff, and then like pre-packaged videos. And unless it's people I got to know from other publications or such, then I usually won't watch their reviews or something, because their opinion, like I don't know how to place it on my own like field of like appreciation of media itself.
Yeah, on my wall of shame, I was very into Game Grumps for a few years, but only during the white supremacist era. And so ever since they've become progressive, I can't quite get into it anymore. But at the time, even though I didn't believe in their qualifications, I was entertained. So I don't know, drawing that line between, say, why I moved from that sort of YouTube entertainment to game criticism and journalists playing the games in the way that those two funny boys did before it all fell apart. I guess that's what prompted this discussion.
Yeah, like, and I will straight up just not pay attention to the opinions of anyone whose values don't at least align with mine in some way. So that is like my initial, like the deal breaker. So not on everything, but well, because that's the thing. It's like also I worked alongside a lot of people who would say like, no, you should consume media. You should really consult the opinions of people who disagree with you. And like, okay, if we're like talking about what is the best way to like arrange a bus system in a city? Okay, we can even then though, but like we can usually have a good conversation about it. But if we're talking about who should have like human rights, then okay, that is not a discussion to have. And there's the opinions of those people I will actually like discard if they're not like in the yes, I believe all humans should be human. But like there's a line somewhere. Like there's people who disagree with me on things that don't actually involve like basic needs or rights, and those people I'm usually fine with. It's really just a matter of like principles, I guess.
To seek out, say, like critics who favor the anime canon, video games versus, say, I only play the finest sports memorabilia titles.
It's so on that case, like it's from the people who like on the bigger issues we agree with, and okay, yeah, like I will totally like see like I don't think it like really I will actually seek out like, oh, I want a pro anime reviewer for like I want to see a pro anime reviewer's opinion of this game.
Those anti-anime reviewers have to be stopped.
It's like on because at that point it's just, well, people like what they like, and yeah, it usually depends on the person, but even then, like it's weird because if it's a written review, I will usually pay more attention to the site rather than the person. But if it's any sort of video content, then it's immediately apparent, because it's weird that I just haven't like been trained to look at, okay, who wrote this when it's come to a visual review, like a written review, and it tends to be like, oh, Polygon reviewed this game, or you should really check out Kotaku's review of this. Like, all right, I will. And the reviewer in question, I will like then discover, oh, it's this person, but that usually won't affect whether or not I actually just check it out.
Something I find interesting is I've been sitting here thinking about Pitchfork, the music criticism site, and in the last year especially, but in the last couple of years, we've seen kind of what we lovingly, I guess, refer to as a pivot to video from a number of websites, and Pitchfork is doing that too. But what's interesting about the way they're doing it is that they'll do a video that's like 5 things about Slowdive's souvlaki that you haven't thought about. I was like, actually, Pitchfork, I have thought about those things because I've heard souvlaki. Like it feels like a cousin of how video games are usually presented in this like half critical, half entertaining, like, here's a list of things you love about talking heads. Like, I don't need you to tell me what I love about talking heads. But here you are doing it, and you've kind of restructuring your whole site around it, and then suddenly, like, it's strange that games feels like the kind of games approach to kind of a hybridized critical entertainment product is starting to branch out further and further. I think a lot of film websites are doing this too. I feel like Cinema Blend and Indie Film Rejects and websites like that are also doing this, but I don't read them enough because I'm bad.
Mm-hmm. I liked Pitchfork's new video about how they had never seen a shooting star before.
Hey, that review's good. Don't at me.
But like, something that makes me think of, like, when it comes to the pivot to video, there's like some, like, if we like just take a step back from games or reviews, or like when there's some things that are better or more like that I want to read or see in pictures, and there's some things that I'm okay with like seeing a video. So like so with games, since there's interactions, there's like a lot of it, I think like it's that makes sense, but like I'm not sure what like if for an actual like even game reviews, I usually just prefer to like read things because I read faster, and there's some things where I think there's like it pays to be viewing something about the thing that is being discussed, but it's I just feel that there's a lot of it that just seems needless. It's kind of like those YouTube tutorials, like, okay, I need to do this specific thing in this piece of software. Okay, here's a 5-minute video of someone talking over their screen grabs of slowly doing the thing. No, just like list me the 5 things in words, and I will just do them. But so I don't know. Like, are there actually videos of someone enjoying a piece of music, or like I don't know how those work.
There are first listen, like there's sort of like album reaction videos when there's a big, I think when MVV, My Bloody Valentine, when their reunion album, I guess it's not a reunion album, but when that album came out, there was a lot of those, things like that.
Right, reaction videos.
Yeah, reaction videos, but the critical tradition goes back a long, long way, but it feels like we're now living, historically you publish criticism and then that's it. You get in a newspaper and a collection of letters or things like that. You get paid, per entry, and there's just an assumption of readership. But now we live in an age where criticism and things like that, audiences is directly measurable, and the function of that criticism, the success of that criticism, is in some ways measured by those metrics, which I think is definitely a different position than we've ever had in artistic spaces. And I wonder how much this sort of phenomenon we're observing is a direct result of that.
Regarding the album reactions question, I remember seeing a lot of like people would point their camera at their turntable and just play an album.
Yeah, that's one method of doing audio rips of vinyl, is basically having a mic, an inline mic in your audio chain, and then putting a camera so you have a video. And then you find it with a lot of like old obscure music. There's a lot of disco DJs, like DJs from the 80s and 90s, that do that still for some reason. But yeah, it's sort of different though. That's a way of presenting the music itself. There was last month I was watching for a little while this guy, I forget his name, but he plays Dark Souls, and he plays Dark Souls a lot. And he played Dark Souls 3, and because he understands these games so thoroughly, and he understands their plots so thoroughly, what their plots are, for those who don't know, kind of difficult to puncture because of the way that they explain themselves. Because he had the plots of these games so thoroughly nailed down in his own head, every time he encountered a new item, he kind of explained like, oh, this relates to Lord Gwyn and how Lord Gwyn overthrew blah, 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 which was a way of experiencing Dark Souls that I have never really considered. And, I don't think this should really get into a larger conversation about performative or play as performance. I think that's, you could write a whole book about that, but there are things like that where it's like you're kind of showing me the text of Dark Souls. You're kind of reinterpreting and presenting in a critical way the text of Dark Souls, but also I'm enjoying watching basically you fumble around in this video game.
Yeah, this is exactly the kind of thing I do. Literally, like that's most of my video content is me going through games, but also but specifically I focus on the game design. Like, oh, look at how this level was made, or there's like this thing here, and I find that fascinating. But yeah, I hope it's entertaining.
But you're like a designer, and she means it like an in-universe like National Geographic or like a Planet Earth, where like Dave Attenborough is getting the cool ring, and he's like, and this is the cool ring. It lets me talk to the Lord over there.
It originated from the Third Age, before the fires fell. Yeah.
Note these 3 skeletons. They'll run at me in a second here.
These 3 skeletons were part of the Battle of Isengard. I don't know. That's not a place in Isengard. That's Lord of the Rings.
That's the hobbits. They're going there.
These are actually remains from initial clerics who sought to spread the way of the white past the catacombs, but
or like Morgan Freeman or something. We're a little off track, I think. We're talking
Where's
about
the track?
Like in universe explanations versus say like the duty of game journalists to be journalists.
Yes, has this podcast turned into entertainment?
I mean, Lord. No, it's metacriticism. It's it's just about a roundtable discussion, and I think that like if it's entertainment, it's merely coincidental. If you're entertained, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you need to reevaluate a lot of things. But
accidental entertainment, though, that's...
Think about it.
Accidentalment.
Have you rendered your verdict? Is there a duty for game journalists to be entertainers or journalists first and foremost?
Well, that's also one thing I wanted to ask, like, critics. Like, I don't think I've ever actually heard an actual answer to the question, or whether, like, what does a critic do? Like, what is the purpose of criticism? Is it just to say, elevate this particular piece of art? Is it to, like, or is it really just, should you buy this thing or not, consumer?
So that's really shifted over the years. In the 17th and 18th century, you saw criticism, and a lot of it was focused on sort of an internal emotional reaction to a work. Like there's reviews of Beethoven symphony premieres that basically explain, like, oh, I was envisioning being in a field with these trees and these flowers, and I felt this peace, with all things, and blah blah blah. And as you move towards, as we move towards the 20th century, towards copyright and towards sort of the industrialization of art, you do start to see a pretty rapid shift towards should I engage with this, pretty much around the invention of the phonograph, and in 2017, I'm not exactly sure what that is. I'm reluctant to say that it's simply buy this thing, because at least personally, I don't need to be told to buy a thing. Mm-hmm. I went to see Blade Runner last night because a lot of critics were reacting positively to it, but I did not react very positively to it. I just was like, okay, I will, fine. Here's my 3 hours. I guess so, because people I trust are saying, they're into it. And I don't regret that. But I don't know that it's necessarily one specific thing, the function of criticism in 2017. I think it's sort of giving a full body of an understanding of this work holistically, rather than simply reacting to it or simply saying whether or not it is good. Because what is good, really?
Oh no, it's. You kind of made me realize something that sometimes I will play a game and then go see the review afterwards just to see, there's all these things I missed about the experience, and now my experience is enriched. So entertainment.
I was just going to say that to call something good is to imply a value judgment on what the function of the game is, or the work. And so then when you enter that and you say, this thing is good or bad, you have to kind of like ask yourself, like, well, what is it good or bad at doing? Like, what is it supposed to be doing right now?
How does my good or bad relate to Ignatiy Vishnevetsky's good or bad, or, Austin Walker's good or bad? How, these are different goods or bads, and, that becomes a relationship with that critic. Mm-hmm. That relationship, I think, can be fostered through entertainment, and I don't think that's necessarily a violation of any statute of critical theory, though maintaining that balance is takes effort.
Yeah, like it's like there are people who will entertain me by what they do, mm-hmm. and also who help me be entertained better by other things. Mm-hmm. And I think that's interesting, but it's going back to the original question, mm-hmm. of it's should they be
well, because they're going extinct. I don't know if you've noticed, but game criticism is going the way of the dodo, in favor of influencers. You look at Bethesda's recent policy of only really handing out their games to the coolest little YouTubers who have no idea why they got a free copy of a game, but they were just so nice to me. And they really put me up for a while. And that is who we're going to give our games to, because they actually get these things sold. You're looking at a world where getting someone to buy your game doesn't involve you giving access to a critic. It involves you giving access to someone that people care about and trust. And so the qualifications are gone, but the notion of trusting someone's voice is still there.
Yeah, and also becomes a weird interaction between creator and critic, where like, oh, like I really hope this person, or like, can I influence this influencer to try my stuff, so it will help me make more things and not starve.
You're feeling something.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's like, because I do remember, like, I worked in like a big studio at some point. When we released a game, there was like this mad rush to like, okay, poke all of your contacts. Say, hey, can you popular person, can you like review this game and help us, like, give us some boost? But I think that was like, weirdly enough, that was before the like big wave of influencers. So, and I have a friend, a developer, who like made this cool little game, and this like a 1 million+ subscriber YouTuber played it at some point, and it made the game a hit. And that let him like keep making more games. And that is wild and also incredibly scary as a content creator. Like I'm eking out a living right now with my things just because people like me enough to buy some of the things I make.
You're dependent on the transformative works that come from your work.
Yes. But yeah, no.
It's like saying, I need to make a good album so that some producer can make a great sample from it. Like, for localhost, we were kind of old-fashioned. Every time we release a game, we just sort of look at the press who've reacted to us positively last time. We would say, hey, just letting you know that we have a new thing. If you want a review code, here it is. Here's a press kit with some basic information about who made it and what people have said about us in the past. And cool, enjoy. And either they cover it or they don't. But in terms of like influencers, like I know that Penelope, the co-writer on the game, she knew a few streamers she wanted to give codes to, and she did. And I can't remember if a single sale came from that, as opposed to say like a conventional article.
Yeah, I didn't see any. I think articles were the majority of our traffic. I don't remember any YouTube or any Twitch sales coming through.
Well, we don't really make games that are well streamed, and so that makes you a little bit reliant on the old world of journalism.
Yeah, and like I
think about that one.
And when I worked at a big studio, like we employees were not told any of the stats, so we didn't know what actually had any effect. So I only got to learn that once I started making my own games. And I mean, I did some fan games at some point, and like, oh, I could pinpoint this popular person tweeted about my game, and there's a big spike on the graph because then a lot of people checked it out. But again, those were free games, so they didn't translate into sales. So there's certainly like, oh, influencers certainly influenced the amount of people who got to see my work, but I don't know if they would help me like pay my bills. And that's a perverse way to think about it.
What scares me is that the kind of interactive work that I like to create wouldn't be possible in a post-critic world. That like nobody took actual coverage on YouTube or Twitch of Arc Symphony because it was entirely text. It was entirely solitary. It wasn't something that's very easily shared in a transformative way, but it's something that you can document and read the hell out of if you really wanted to. And so, you look at Wired or Polygon or what have you, and they love talking about Arc Symphony, but YouTube didn't give a shit. Like, so how can people who want to make, text heavy interactive work or certain kinds of unfilmable work still survive if we only have the fetishization of the glamour of AAA works through YouTube or through Twitch?
Yeah, so so in this world we live in currently, without like universal basic income, where we have to like struggle and make things to make money.
Yeah, it's not 2 years from now when we all absolutely have universal basic income.
Fingers crossed. But basically, like, then it becomes like, oh, should critics be entertainers? Well, like, from the point of view of a creator, maybe they should, because it'll give them a bigger audience, so that when they actually do write critics, make articles and reviews of products, there will be more people who can then go see what it is and perhaps help the author. So like, hey critic, you write really cool stuff. It would be cool if you like entertained, like amassed a massive following, perhaps through entertainment, because maybe that's an easier way to amass like a following than just raw criticism, because then your individual reviews will have more impact. And that's a weird way to think about it. Huh.
I think also on the critical end, there has been a bit of a dilution of that sphere, as well as they've started to thin out. I'm using the same metaphor a lot. I think this year, especially, Oikospiel was a game that was really kind of let down by critics, because the only thing you can really say about it, without getting into a dialectic on workers' rights and unionization and labor and all that, the only thing you can really say about it is it's a dog opera, which doesn't tell anybody anything unless they understand dogs or opera. And that was a game that I think actually thrived more through streaming and things like that, even though a lot of the streamers did the kind of, oh my god, what the fuck is this? It's like LSD Dream Emulator. It's so weird. I don't understand.
Were they on drugs?
Were they on drugs when they made this game?
Let's find out.
Only one YouTuber's here to find out. It's me, Professional Jared. I'm going to tell you.
Why are you picking on this man?
Because his name is silly. But yeah, and like Dog Opera, Oikospiel is probably my favorite game of the year, but it's really hard to talk about, or like, to really express, hey, this is why you should play that. Because it's so post-structuralist, it's so outside the boundaries of what we expect play to really do. That there's a dearth of writing in critical spaces that really engages with kind of the broader art tradition. Such, I think, that is so far removed from what games critics actually talk about, that I don't know that the distinction between critic and entertainer really is as sacrosanct as it might be in other more established, unfortunately, forms. There's certainly a distinction between a critic and a reviewer in music, unless you're talking about somebody like Anthony Fantano, God forbid, who sort of is an entertainer, but is sort of regurgitating the kind of opinions you expect to hear from a certain variety of internet music fan. I'm
sorry, you just blew my mind by separating critics and reviewers. It's going to take me a moment.
Can you expand on that?
So a reviewer is somebody who tells you if the new Death Grips album is good and if it does all the things Death Grips do. It was loud, and MC Ride yelled at me a lot, and he said things about, come. And then a critic is somebody who goes, Death Grips sort of exists as kind of a manifestation of like internet era anxiety and, living in this physical space while also projecting a lot of your identity and self into a digital space, and having the breakdown of self that occurs in between those two things is sort of what Death Grips is exploring. And you can hear that in, these synth timbres and kind of these mutterings that MC Ride is doing. Sort of, it's exploring those kinds of hurts and traumas that we all feel in this, digital connected age. So that's the difference between, I think, a critic and a reviewer. And then an entertainer, furthermore, from the reviewer standpoint, goes, this is good or this is bad, and I'm going to perform that. I'm going to perform that reaction at you. So I don't know if the fact that those are steps away from each other necessarily negate their relationship, but I think it is a separation, at least in form. Then it's not a 1-1 match.
This only speaks to your point, but as someone who's like living and breathing interactive media and journalism and listening to 3 or 4 different game podcasts and watching the coverage and watching YouTube streams all the time, I had never heard of Oikospiel until you mentioned it to me like a month ago.
I had, because I follow certain influencers on Twitter who really yelled loudly about it because they were very excited about it. It's really good. I'm afraid it's going to break my mind.
Gotta preserve that mind, Sandra.
It's what I have.
Art's gonna threaten it.
Oh no, the art got me. I'm a communist now because of the dog opera.
You sound like Mr. Ed.
Oh, horse opera.
No, you did the voice like Mr. Ed, like he had experienced the dog opera.
Dog opera?
And was forever changed.
Yeah, well that's,
Mr. Dead.
It's my favorite Sega Saturn platformer. Anyway,
I think that wraps up the discussion this time on our pilot episode of Metagame.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on and blowing my mind a little bit. And I'm gonna think
guarantee.
That's what we're here for.
It's just a little bit of blowing on the mind every week. I'm Sophia Park.
I'm Christa Lee.
And you can follow us on our RSS feed at metagame.fun. Or soon you'll find us on the iTunes Store, or you can help us on Patreon. You can support us and join our Discord channel to continue the discussion.
And if you don't already, and you probably do, I'm sorry, but you can follow me on Twitter at OHPOORPUP, OHPOORPUP, like a sad dog.
I'm Sophia Park with a PH and an underscore at the end, so SOPHIAPARK _.
Can I plug my stuff?
Please.
Plug away.
Yeah, I'm Alex Zandra. On Twitter, I am at Zandra Vandra. That's pretty much where I am everywhere else, too. Basically, I through some weird series of events, I now write light novels and illustrate them. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested, basically follow my stuff on patreon.com/ZandraVandra. That's where you'll hear me scream about everything I'm doing excitedly. And I'm also in a lot of other places, but Patreon's where
What about Pinterest?
I'm not on Pinterest, no, I'm sorry. I'm a secret adult. I'm actually not on Pinterest or on Instagram or
DeviantArt.
Oh my gosh, I need to close my DeviantArt account.
Okay, ZandraVandra.deviantart.com.
No.
Please go check it out.
No, please don't check it out. Oh my gosh, it's so old. Oh my god.
Novels made of light. Imagine. Hard light novels.
Wow, that was a great joke.
No, hold on. I'm going to write this down for
See, I'm an influencer too.
Okay. Well, that's all for today. We'll see you next time. Every 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Why?